Welcome back to Wealth Mavericks, the podcast where we help doctors unlock the secrets to building generational wealth. And today we're talking about home equity lines of credit and how to use them to build wealth.
One of the things that wealthy do is they leverage their assets to make other assets.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity in their home. And this is what you call dormant dollars, just sitting there eating potato chips. Welcome back to the podcast. We're so glad you're here. I'm joined by Bob Wolf. And if you didn't know, Bob actually has his own YouTube channel called Asset Coach and Tax Strategist. I know Bob is on Wealth Mavericks some of the weeks, but if you want more Bob, you're going to want to go over to his YouTube channel, hit subscribe, and you post weekly, Bob. And at this point, you have hundreds of videos over there, and there's so much great information. Like I said, if you want more Bob, go over there. But I'm so glad to have you here today, Bob. We're going to talk about HELOCs because this is something that comes up with a lot of our members when we start to look at their assets. And so many of them, and probably a lot of listeners too, are sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity in their home. And this is what you call dormant dollars, just sitting there eating potato chips. And people aren't using it because they don't know what to do with it or how. So today we want to talk about that. So talk to me about HELOCs and how we use them to help our members continue to grow their wealth.
Yeah, no, of course. Thank you, Erin. Good to be back. And so HELOC stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. There is a home equity loan that is also mistaken a lot of time as home equity line of credit. A HELOC, a home equity line of credit, is just that. They're utilizing the home and the equity in the home as a line of credit. So just like a credit card where you have a line of credit, use it or don't use it, right? Versus a loan, you're using it. So there's the two differences between those two things. So the home equity line of credit, I think to take a step back is really understanding that the wealthy, and I've said this in previous episodes, both here on Wealth Maverick as well as their Asset Coach Tax Strategist channel. And you'll hear a lot of people that talk about asset building, wealth accumulation, talking about leveraging your assets. The wealthy leverage their assets to create more assets. And the reason being, it's a tax-free event. To utilize the equity in your house is not a taxable event. Yeah, there's a cost to it, right? There's interest because a bank is lending you the money. So there's going to be a cost for that. That's why interest rates and being up or down is important to understand when we do certain things and why we do certain things. Because just like with any decision, there's always a cost to our decisions. Even if it's you're going to buy bananas this week or not because of how much they cost this year. You know, it's just there's costs to the transaction. Okay. One of the things that I think a lot of people forget is that credit cards and equity lines of credits were really designed for emergencies. Here in the United States, we have utilized credit cards as an example because that is a line of credit. We've used credit cards as our cash flow, as part of our spending cash flow. And so a lot of homes have credit or debt on their personal balance sheet because of utilizing credit cards. And there's a cost to that. And we know what those costs are. They're pretty high. Now, home equity line of credit, you pay interest on it if you use it. If it's just sitting there and you haven't used it, meaning you haven't taken any money out of it or paid money into something, a transaction, there's no cost to it. That could be your emergency fund. So in our planning at Terra Firma for our members, we utilize these lines of credit as emergency fund. So that way you can have cash not sitting in a savings account. You can have cash actually working for you, not sitting around doing nothing for you. And the reason why this is important is because inflation, the taxes, the cost of life, there's a cost to it. We have to hedge it. We have to be ahead of it. We have to allow our hard-earned dollars that we've earned to be put at work. And so that's why we talk about these dormant dollars, these dollars that sit on the couch eating potato chips. If your kid is sitting all day long during summer, at the time of this recording, it's summertime, right? Kids are out of school. They're sitting on the couch doing nothing all day long, 5 days a week through the entire summer. As a parent, are you jumping with joy, flipping, and just excited? No, right? That's the biggest annoying. Get out, right? I know when we grew up, we were always out. right? In high school, I was always in summer league basketball. I was always out on my bike. I was always out doing something outside and being active, right? And so, do you want your dollars sitting on the couch doing nothing for you? And the answer is no. And the equity in your home does this exact same thing. It earns exactly 0% rate of return. 0%. So one of the things that wealthy do is they leverage their assets to make other assets. So if, for example, and again, this is not investment advice, this is just for educational purposes only. We're not telling you to do this. We don't know your situation. So just take it as just education. We're not responsible for you making decisions based on us just having a dialogue and conversation. If you have 200,000 sitting in equity that's accessible, meaning you went to your bank and said, hey, I want an equity line of credit on my house. And they said, you have access to 200,000. And you were to utilize that 200,000. Let's say you just used a half of it. Let's say you used 100,000 and you wanted to buy another asset. So let's say a single family home as an investment property, and you want to use this 100,000 as a 20% down payment. So that means you could buy a house for 500,000 or up to 5,000. And based on that, yes, there will be a mortgage. But if you could rent that out and you purchase that and you rent that out and you were actually able to have positive cash flow, that positive cash flow can pay back that equity line of credit. Now you have this asset actually making money for you. And it started because of this dormant assets. You took them off the couch and you put them out into the world to work. Okay. That's what the wealthy do. And then they rinse and repeat. And so when the equity in this house grows to a certain point, it appreciates, it grows, the debt gets paid down because of the renters are paying for it. And your HELOC has been paid back and that house is appreciating. Now you have two assets, and just using real estate as an example, all assets work very similar. All of a sudden you have two assets with equity that you can do a tax-free event and take the equity out and put now the equity into two more properties as an example, or a separate business. Maybe you have an opportunity to go invest in a business with a family member or somebody that you highly respect, or you decide to start your own business because I'm sick and tired of this. I'm going to go do my own thing now. Okay. Ooh, Bob, that sounds risky. Yes, there's risk to everything, including leaving your equity in your house, because it earns exactly 0%. If inflation's anywhere from 2 to 3%, you need your house to appreciate by 2 to 3%. But your house is only appreciating based on the comps or the neighborhood you're in, right? So I have seen where my grandparents lived. I've seen where my wife's grandparents lived. At the time when they bought their house, at the time they raised their kids, it was a great place. Now, maybe not so much. What's that house worth now in a crime-ridden neighborhood, right? That street may be nice, but the next streets over aren't. What happens in that situation, right? And so I'm not saying that that's going to happen to everybody's neighborhood, but that's the point, is that there's times where, imagine if over the years, the 40 years that my wife's grandparents were to use those assets and to buy other assets. Imagine what that would have looked like for the family wealth in that particular location, right? So the point is that decisions are being made. HELOCs are a great opportunity because you're already living there. Also, having debt on your house is kind of an asset protection. So that's really important. You talk to some of these attorneys that do asset protection. One of the things they talk about is debting your house, right? Getting as much of the equity out, because nobody wants to sue somebody who has a bunch of debt and no assets free and clear, right? Now, is that extreme? Yeah, it could be, but it could also be very strategic as well. Not saying to do that, but I'm just using that as an example of what some do. So in your situation, it would be really that answer that, Erin, you always hear me say, well, it depends. What it doesn't depend on, having a HELOC is a great thing to have access to. That is your emergency fund initially. Depending on your situation and what your goals are and your other assets and your cash flow, meaning your income, all that fun stuff now gets put into this overall plan. And do we use that? right? We never want to put ourselves in a position to where we're negatively affecting ourselves to where you can't sleep at night.
Yeah.
Right? We can't do that. That doesn't make any sense. That's bad advice.
So
Right?
even if you don't have a plan for it yet, it's just good to, if you have good credit, you have equity in your house, just open a HELOC. Because like you said, you're not paying any interest on it if you're not using it, but it extends your line of credit and your debt to income ratio and all of that. And then, so people should do that. And they can do that by going to their bank or credit union or any of the lenders. I recently put our info into like a lending tree, and then I got, oh my gosh, just spammed from everybody. So I would advise against that. We ended up going with our credit union and got the best deal that way. But like, that's something that we say we do as much as we can for our members. That right there is something like, well, you need to find the best option for you. We can advise you on it, but it's a great idea to do that. Another question I had is, for tax purposes, if you use the money for home renovations, you can write off the interest, right? But if you use it for something else, you can't.
Correct. So that's why when we say don't buy a boat, right? Utilize, when we look at assets that we leverage for a member, we only leverage assets to create other assets.
Not liabilities.
Not liabilities.
Okay.
Well, Bob, if you buy a real estate property and you get a loan, then it's a liability. Yes, but it's an asset first because you're doing it to create a revenue stream, right? And the goal is to pay that down. There's also strategies out there that that you can actually use your HELOC to pay down your primary mortgage. And how to do that to pay down your primary mortgage quicker. And so there's with what we do in the Asset Buddy system, we can put together a plan. If a lot of our members, Erin, they come to us and one of the questions we always ask them is that is paying off your mortgage a priority for you? Right? Because everyone's in a different mindset. And the members that we have that have had a mortgage that's anywhere from 3% or less, because when the interest rates are really low, they're like, why would I do that? My interest rate's really low. True. But when you look at interest on a mortgage, it's still the amortization schedule on a mortgage. Your first payment, most of it is going to be interest. The banks make interest faster than you pay down. Right. So the first half of your mortgage is the majority of those dollars are going to the bank, and it changes. So every year your tax deduction, your tax benefit drops every year. Right. Because you're paying less and less interest every year, more and more principal every year. So even though you're at a 2.5%, your first parts of your mortgage are interest first, right? So don't get blinded by interest rates because of them being low. The dialogue, the conversation is, what can I do with my money if I did that, right? And then we have some members that are like, yeah, we believe in zero debt. We don't like any debt. Great. What would you like us to do to help show you how to pay off your mortgage quicker? Especially business owners. If you're a practice owner, we highly recommend us putting a strategy in place, no matter what the interest on your home is, putting a strategy in place to pay off your mortgage right away. And here's why. Very, very basic. So the moment I tell you guys, you're going to go, oh, that's true. Because that's what I did when I heard it. As a business owner, you pay for your mortgage out of your checking account. How does money get into your checking account? From your business, either as W-2 or distribution K-1. So you're paying income taxes on dollars, and most of our members in this situation are either in a 35 or 37% federal tax bracket. So you're paying 35 to 37% on those dollars for your mortgage. The quicker we pay off your mortgage, the quicker you don't need those dollars anymore. And we can actually strategize those dollars from the business into other strategies and no longer have it as taxable income. But Bob, my interest rate's 2.8%. Yeah, but your tax dollars are 37%, which is greater. So that's the idea as we're looking at this, is take a step back, look at the bigger picture. What do we want the dollars to be and do? And so when we go to home equity line of credit, it's a tool to be able to help us get there, like any other asset is a tool to help us get us to whatever that plan is. But a lot of people don't look at the taxation because their CPA is not talking about, which is crazy, right? Because that's what my CPA does. They file my taxes. But a lot of them aren't tax strategists. Your financial planner doesn't say, because they're not a tax strategist. We're looking at the holistic picture. The taxes and reduced taxation is a rate of return to your overall portfolio and growth of your assets. That's how we have to look at it. So not just, oh, it's a low interest rate. So that's just kind of my rebuttal to some of that, if that helps. Does that make sense?
I mean, it does, but I can also feel like, okay, I'm hearing, yes, I should pay off my house, or no, I shouldn't pay off my house. And again, it always goes back to, it depends. It depends on your situation and your goals.
Yeah. Yeah. In some situations, maybe it makes sense to, hey, don't pay off your house right now. Let's go build another asset. That other asset that we build is designed to pay off your house, your current asset. Right? So there's how do we do that? What's the efficient way, most efficient and effective way to do that? That's part of that depends, right? And so it's really kind of everybody's situation's different. When we have docs that are making, 7-figure income and they live a very low but comfortable lifestyle, meaning that probably 60% of their income is not being used for their lifestyle, then yeah, we can build up other assets right away, utilize big chunks. We'll be able to grow other assets quicker because they have more. This is the thing that most people don't realize is the more you have, and you brought this up in the beginning of one of the other episodes, is the more you have, the more you grow, the more access to the tax code you have, the more availability to other assets you have, the more banks want to lend you money. And that's the way the system is, because the more you have, the more you can create. And the more you can create means really you're going to end up helping the tax system create more tax revenue. Just doesn't mean it has to be you.
So there are no limitations to no one's regulating what you do with that money that you take out, right? I had one member say, well, I don't think you're allowed to do that. And it's like they thought a HELOC was only for home improvements and stuff like that. But you can do, we've heard people pay off credit cards or go on a big vacation, or there's no limitations. You just want to be smart about it. You don't want to do those things.
That's right.
But let's say someone is sitting on $500,000, $1 million in equity in their house. And yes, they want to grow their wealth, but it's I don't have time to have an Airbnb or be a property manager. And I don't really have a business that I want to start. I'm happy with what I'm doing. So then what? So then that's where funds and different investments come in. That's a great option, right?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different options. I mean, it's I don't want to say it's endless because it obviously isn't, but there are many options available. Now, some of those that, to kind of go back to your point of, well, I didn't know you could do that. Also, is it a home equity loan? There are some banks have limitations what you can do with the home equity loan depending on your situation. So they may only lend you money if you're going to pay down credit card or other debts or whatever the case may be, and not give you more equity. Which for me is why would you do that? Why would you go to that lending institution when it's your money? Why are you telling me what I can do with my asset, my equity? And that's the whole point of control. Right? Is going through this process. Every institution's different. Don't just say yes to the institution that you're just so excited that, oh, they said yes, but then they create limitations. And if you're uncertain, reach out to your coach and reach out to us, and we'll have conversations if you're a member of what your options and what some of the plan would look like and how this could be part of the plan.
Okay. So I know when you go to get a HELOC, the bank will approve you for a certain amount. But just you get approved to buy a home, you probably don't want to go to the absolute limit that you're approved for. Same with a HELOC. Do you have a rule of okay, if I have $1 million, I should only take, what percent? Or again, does it depend?
Yeah, it depends, because if they have no other debts and we have some a plan laid out in these other assets and what would we be doing with those funds to help their situation, then again, dollars are just dollars. That's not the thing. It's the plan that makes the most sense and how you execute the plan and the return on that plan, right? In conservative numbers. So we don't ever go, oh, you're going to get a 60% rate. Hey, let's put this money into Bitcoin, right? That's not the dialogue and conversation, right? We're looking for things that are very boring. And the reality is that when you look at the tax code actually gives the best tax benefits to that boring stuff, because that boring stuff is what actually creates more tax revenue for the government, only if the wealthy, you, participate. So meaning that you use your wealth to help create more tax revenue for the government, but it doesn't mean you're paying more taxes. You're just creating more assets that end up creating more jobs. And those jobs, those W-2s, create more tax liability or tax revenue to the government. Okay. And so that would be for the whole plan. So again, the dollar amount really doesn't matter. It matters based on the overall plan design and what makes the most sense.
That's awesome. Well, do you have anything to add on this topic before we wrap up?
No, I think it's, it's a fun topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I can easily see any one of our listeners going, okay, you didn't really tell me anything. But that's the point.
We planted the seed. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't tell you what to do. That's the whole point, is that any asset, any strategy is not to say, go do this unless we know you. And even our members, it takes some time to go through this process and learn about their situation, learn about their goals and educate them. Even though we tell them, hey, do this, then most of our doctors are scientists, right? They're doctors. So they ask questions. What if we came back and say, no, don't ask me questions. We told you to do this. Right? No, that's not going to fly. That's not the way it works. This is your money. These are your assets. It's our job to help you understand why you're doing what you're doing, for what purpose, what the reason, and what your exit strategy is. We're not going to leave you out there and just push you out and say, good luck. Hopefully you can fly out of this nest. No, we'll hold your hand. But in that process, this is 100% your money. And so you do have to have an understanding of why you're making a decision. You just can't blindly go and but Bob, I'm really busy. Then just keep doing what you're doing and just don't do anything to change your situation, because we're all busy. We're busy trying to help you.
Totally. And what's most important. Yeah. Well, I think it was a great conversation, and I think it probably did spark something for some people who haven't really thought about it. Like, oh yeah, I am sitting on a lot of money. So the takeaway is that there are a lot of options. We are here to help. And if you're new around here, our discovery process comes with a money back guarantee. So if you make good money and you're paying 6 figures in taxes and you think I need to be doing something different, go through discovery with us and we'll show you what is possible. We'll look at your tax return. We'll show you the tax savings. We'll show you the long list of strategies that we can deploy on your behalf to help you leverage everything available to you in the tax code. Like we say, you learn the what, you hear it here and there, but no one's telling you the how. And that is what Terra Firma membership is all about. So Bob, thank you for educating us on HELOCs. Like I said in the beginning, Bob has his own YouTube channel as well, Asset Coach and Tax Strategist. We will link it below. We appreciate you being here. We'll talk to you next time. And until then, go be a Wealth Maverick.